Many of us start our mornings or settle down in the afternoon with a hot cup of tea or instant coffee. It is a comforting ritual that signals time to relax or wake up. To save time, you might put a mug of water in the microwave, set the timer for 2 minutes, and wait for the beep. When you open the door, the water looks calm and still. It does not look like it is boiling at all. But the moment you drop in a tea bag or stir it with a spoon, that calm water suddenly erupts upward, splashing boiling liquid over your hands, your chest, or even your face. This phenomenon is called superheating, and it is a hidden danger in our kitchens that sends thousands of people to the burn unit every single year. It happens when water gets hotter than the boiling point, but cannot form bubbles to release that energy. Today, I am going to explain exactly why this happens, why it is surprisingly common with modern dishware, and most importantly, how to make sure you never face this painful accident. Hello and welcome to Senior Safety Check. I am Dr. Laura Simmons. My goal is to help you navigate your later years with confidence, keeping you safe and healthy right in the comfort of your own home. I've also added a helpful guide to the Senior Health Guide app, linked below. Now, let's dive in. Before we get to the science, I would love to know one thing in the comments. Do you usually use a kettle to boil your water, or do you rely on the microwave for a quick cup? Let me know down below. To understand why microwaving water is risky, we have to look at how a microwave works compared to a stovetop kettle. When you heat water on a stove, the heat comes from the bottom. The water at the bottom gets hot, turns into steam bubbles, and rises to the top. This movement, where the water churns and bubbles, cools the water slightly and limits how hot it can get. It physically cannot get much hotter than the boiling point, because the energy is constantly escaping as steam. You see the bubbles, you hear the whistle, and you know it is hot. A microwave works completely differently. It shoots invisible waves into the water that cause the water molecules to vibrate incredibly fast. This friction creates heat from the inside out, often very evenly throughout the cup. Stay with me here, because this is the tricky part. If you use a very clean, smooth ceramic mug or a glass measuring cup, there are no imperfections on the surface for bubbles to latch onto. On a stove, the rough bottom of a metal kettle gives bubbles a place to form. In a smooth, microwave-safe mug, those bubbles have nowhere to start. So, the water keeps absorbing energy. It gets hotter and hotter, climbing well past 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the boiling point. But it sits there, perfectly still, trapping all that energy inside. It is like a loaded spring waiting for a trigger. The moment you introduce something, like a spoon, a tea bag, or even just the movement of picking up the cup, you break that tension. All the superheated steam tries to escape at once. The result is an instant, violent explosion of scalding water. Let me share a story about Margaret from Ohio to illustrate this. Margaret is 72 and loves her afternoon instant coffee. She had a favorite ceramic mug that she had used for years. One Tuesday, she filled it with water and put it in the microwave for her usual 3 minutes, thinking she wanted it extra hot to dissolve the coffee granules. When the timer went off, she opened the door and saw the water was not bubbling, so she assumed it wasn't quite hot enough, but decided to use it anyway. She reached in, took the mug out, and placed it on the counter. It was still perfectly calm. Margaret then took a metal spoon dipped in instant coffee and lowered it into the water. The split second the spoon touched the surface, the water exploded upwards. It didn't just spill, it erupted. The scalding water splashed up onto her neck, her chin, and her right cheek. Margaret was wearing glasses, which thankfully protected her eyes, but the burns on her face and neck were severe. She had to rush to the emergency room and spent weeks treating painful second-degree burns. She told me later that she had no idea water could blow up like that. She thought water always bubbled when it boiled. This brings up a critical point about our skin as we age. When we are younger, our skin is thicker and has more natural oils, providing a slight barrier against heat. As we enter our 60s and 70s, our skin becomes much thinner and more fragile. This means that a burn that might have been minor 20 years ago can be quite serious now. It penetrates deeper and faster. Also, our reaction times slow down slightly. By the time your brain registers that the water is hot and signals your hand to let go or pull back, the damage is often already done. Listen closely, because this next part explains why the type of cup matters so much. You might think that using high-quality, new dinnerware is safer. However, older mugs often have scratches and tiny chips on the inside from years of stirring with spoons. Those little scratches are actually helpful in the microwave. They provide what scientists call nucleation points. These are rough spots where bubbles can form, allowing the steam to escape gradually as the water heats up. When you use a brand new, perfectly smooth glazed mug or a clear glass measuring cup, there are no scratches. This makes it much easier for the water to superheat without boiling. I want to take you across the ocean for a moment to hear about Elias, a gentleman from Greece. Elias is 68 and has lived in Athens his whole life. He enjoys herbal teas and had recently bought a set of modern clear glass mugs because he liked seeing the color of the tea. He put a glass mug of water in the microwave. He watched it spinning, and since he didn't see any bubbles, he added another 30 seconds. He wanted to make sure it was hot enough for his mountain tea. When the microwave stopped, Elias opened the door. The water was still. He reached in with a tea bag in his hand. As he dropped the tea bag into the glass, the water reacted to the rough texture of the herbs and the paper bag. It surged up and out of the glass, pouring over his hand and wrist inside the microwave. Because the glass was clear, he hadn't realized just how much energy was trapped in there. The burn on his hand was significant enough that he lost dexterity in his fingers for a month while it healed, making it hard for him to button his shirts or write. Elias learned the hard way that a lack of bubbles does not mean a lack of heat. This is why I always advise seniors to be very cautious with glass containers in the microwave specifically for water. Soups and stews are usually fine because they have ingredients, chunks of vegetables, noodles, or spices that allow bubbles to form. Pure water has nothing in it to release the pressure. If you absolutely must use the microwave, you need to change how you do it. We will get to the specific techniques in a moment, but I want to emphasize that the container is your first line of defense. If you have an old favorite mug that is a bit stained and scratched on the inside, it is ironically safer than the pristine one you save for guests. But even then, the risk is never zero. Let's talk about another scenario that often catches people off guard. It involves disturbance. Sometimes you don't even need to add a spoon or a tea bag. Just the act of moving the cup can trigger the eruption. When you grasp the handle and slide the cup toward you, that motion sloshes the water slightly. That movement can be enough to wake up the sleeping giant of energy trapped in the liquid. Consider Robert from Florida. Robert is 75 and lives alone. He was not making tea. He was heating water to dissolve a bouillon cube for a quick lunch. He used a heavy Pyrex measuring cup, the kind many of us have in our cupboards. He heated 2 cups of water for 5 minutes. That is a long time. When he opened the microwave, the water was silent. He reached in to grab the handle of the measuring cup. As soon as he pulled it off the glass turntable, the vibration of sliding it caused the water to flash boil. The water erupted violently, shooting out of the wide mouth of the measuring cup. It splashed onto Robert's chest and abdomen through his thin cotton t-shirt. The shirt held the scalding water against his skin, making the burn worse. Robert panicked and tried to pull his shirt off, but the pain was immediate and intense. He suffered serious burns across his stomach that required daily dressing changes for weeks. It was a terrifying experience for him because it happened so fast, and he was alone in the house. I want you to hear this clearly. Robert did not do anything wrong in terms of operating the microwave. He pressed the button and waited. But the physics of water and microwaves creates a trap that most of us are never warned about. We assume that if water is too hot, it will boil over and make a mess in the microwave. We prefer a mess to a burn, but superheating prevents the mess until it becomes a burn. So, what determines if this will happen to you? It is a combination of time, the container, and the purity of the water. If you have a water filter or a reverse osmosis system at home, your water is very pure. It lacks the minerals and impurities that tap water has. Believe it or not, impurities help water boil normally. The cleaner your water, the higher the risk of superheating, because there are fewer particles for bubbles to form around. So if you pride yourself on having the cleanest, purest water, you actually need to be extra careful with the microwave. Let's pause and think about our kitchen setup. As we age, we often look for shortcuts to save energy. Lifting a heavy kettle might be hard on your wrists or shoulders. I understand that. The microwave feels lighter and easier. You just put the cup in and press a button. But we have to weigh that convenience against the risk of a third-degree burn. If you have arthritis or tremors, your hand might not be steady when you reach into the microwave. If the water explodes, you are less likely to be able to jerk your hand away quickly without dropping the cup and causing even more injury. This is important. If you have noticed that your hands are not as steady as they used to be, or if you have decreased sensation in your fingertips due to diabetes or other conditions, this danger is doubled for you. You might not feel the heat radiating from the cup until the liquid is already on you. And if you drop a cup of boiling water, it can splash down onto your legs and feet. I want to start discussing some safer alternatives and methods. The absolute safest way to boil water is, and always will be, a kettle. Whether it is an electric kettle that sits on the counter or a traditional one for the stove. Electric kettles today are wonderful because many of them have automatic shutoffs. Once the water boils, it turns off. You don't have to worry about forgetting it and burning the house down. They also have a spout, which makes pouring the water into your cup much safer than carrying a sloshing open mug from a high microwave shelf. However, I know old habits are hard to break. If you are determined to keep using the microwave, there are specific rules you must follow to protect yourself. We are going to go through a step-by-step protocol for microwave safety that you can start using today. The first rule of thumb is never to heat the water for an excessive amount of time. It sounds simple, but how many of us actually know how long it takes our specific microwave to boil a cup of water? Microwaves vary in power. A 1,000-watt microwave will boil water much faster than a 700-watt one. If you just guess and punch in 3 minutes, you are likely overheating the water significantly. To find the safe time, you have to do a little experiment. Place a cup of water in the microwave and watch it through the window. Do not leave the room. See how long it takes to see the very first signs of movement or bubbles. If it is 2 minutes, then never set your timer for longer than 1 minute and 45 seconds. You want to stop before it reaches that dangerous superheated state. Another vital tip involves giving the bubbles a helper. Remember how I said smooth cups prevent bubbles? you can artificially create a rough surface. One simple trick is to place a wooden object in the water before you heat it. A wooden chopstick or a wooden stirrer works well. Wood has a naturally rough surface that encourages bubbles to form. If the water gets hot enough to boil, the bubbles will form on the wood and rise up, preventing the superheating explosion. Just make sure the wood is microwave safe and untreated. But perhaps the most critical advice I can give you regarding the microwave involves patience. We are often in a rush, wanting our tea right now. But that rush is what leads to accidents. When the microwave beeps, your first instinct is to open the door and grab the cup. I want you to fight that instinct. Establish a new rule for yourself, the wait and tap rule. When the timer goes off, leave the door closed. Wait for at least 30 seconds. This allows the temperature to stabilize. Then open the door, but do not reach in yet. Instead, take a long-handled spoon or a wooden utensil and gently tap the side of the cup while it is still sitting on the turntable. This is the tap part of the rule. If the water is superheated and ready to explode, that gentle tap will provide enough vibration to break the tension. The water might bubble up vigorously or splash, but it will happen inside the confined, safe space of the microwave, not all over your chest or face. This simple tap acts as a safety valve. If nothing happens when you tap it, wait another 10 seconds, then carefully remove the cup using a towel or an oven mitt. I want to share another story that highlights a different mistake we often make when trying to keep our beverages warm. This is about Linda from Texas. Linda is 64 and very active in her community gardening club. She often takes a travel mug of tea with her when she goes out. One afternoon, she came home with half a mug of cold tea left. She decided to reheat it in the microwave. She loosened the lid, but left it sitting on top of the mug to prevent splatters. Thinking the steam could escape through the drinking hole, she set the microwave for 2 minutes. When she took the mug out, the lid seemed to be stuck slightly from the suction of the cooling air inside as she walked to the table. When she tried to twist the lid off, the built-up pressure from the steam released all at once. The steam and hot droplets rushed out onto her wrist and forearm. Steam burns can be even more damaging than boiling water because steam carries more heat energy. Linda suffered a painful burn right on the tender skin of her inner wrist. The lesson here is never to microwave any container with a lid on, even if it is loosened. Always remove the lid completely to allow full airflow. Let me slow down here because this brings us to a very practical solution that I recommend to almost all my patients. If you enjoy hot drinks daily, I strongly suggest you stop microwaving water entirely and invest in an electric kettle. I know change is hard, and you might think a kettle is just another appliance cluttering your counter. But modern electric kettles are designed with safety features that microwaves simply do not have. An electric kettle heats water from the bottom, creating those natural bubbles we talked about earlier. This means the water boils normally and will not superheat. Furthermore, most modern kettles have an automatic shut-off switch. Once the water reaches boiling, the kettle turns itself off. You do not have to watch it, and you do not have to guess the time. For seniors, this is a crucial safety feature. If you get distracted by a phone call or the doorbell, the kettle won't boil dry or cause a fire hazard. There are even tipping kettles or hot water dispensers available now. These are fantastic if you have arthritis or weakness in your wrists. You simply place your cup under the spout and press a button, and hot water flows directly into your cup. You never have to lift a heavy vessel of boiling water. It eliminates the risk of dropping a heavy mug or kettle entirely. However, I realize that some of you will still use the microwave. If you do, I want you to use the wooden stick method. This is a simple trick used by chemists. Before you start the microwave, place a clean, microwave-safe wooden stirrer or a wooden chopstick into the water. Leave it there while the water heats. Wood has a naturally rough, porous surface. As the water heats up, bubbles will form on the wood. These bubbles act as a release valve for the energy, preventing the water from becoming superheated. It forces the water to boil gently rather than exploding all at once. It is a very simple, cost-free way to make your morning routine safer. Just be sure to use wood, not plastic, as some plastics can melt or leach chemicals at high temperatures. Now, let's talk about what happens if, despite your best efforts, you do get burned. Knowing exactly what to do in the first 60 seconds can make the difference between a minor injury and a hospital stay. If scalding water splashes on you, your instinct might be to panic or to wipe the water off. Listen closely. The very first thing you must do is get the affected area under cool, running water. Do not use ice-cold water, and definitely do not use ice directly on the skin. Ice can actually damage the burned tissue further by restricting blood flow too much. You want cool, gentle tap water. You need to keep the burn under that water for a full 20 minutes. This might feel like a long time, but heat can stay trapped in the deeper layers of your skin and continue burning you even after the water is gone. The cool, running water pulls that heat out. While you are cooling the burn, remove any jewelry near the area immediately. If you burned your hand, take off your rings. If you burned your wrist, take off your watch or bracelet. Burns cause swelling very quickly. A ring that fits loosely now could become a tourniquet in 10 minutes, cutting off circulation to your finger and complicating the injury significantly. I also want to address some old wives' tales that I still hear from my patients. Please, never put butter, mayonnaise, toothpaste, or oil on a fresh burn. These substances trap the heat inside the skin, which is the exact opposite of what you want. They also are not sterile and can introduce bacteria into an open wound. Keep the burn clean. After cooling it for 20 minutes, you can cover it loosely with a sterile, non-stick bandage or clean plastic wrap to keep air off it, which reduces pain. If the burn is on your face, hands, feet, or groin, or if it is larger than the palm of your hand, you need to see a doctor immediately. Let's travel to the UK for our final story, where tea is a way of life. This is about Sarah, a 78-year-old grandmother living in Manchester. Sarah had used a stovetop whistling kettle for 50 years. When her stove broke, her son bought her a microwave to use temporarily while they waited for repairs. Sarah wasn't used to it. She put her tea water in for 4 minutes because she liked it piping hot. She didn't know about superheating. She took the cup out, walked to her favorite chair, and sat down. As she lowered the cup to the saucer on her lap, the movement triggered the reaction. The water surged out. Thankfully, Sarah was wearing a thick wool cardigan which absorbed most of the water before it reached her skin, but she still suffered a painful red scald on her thigh. It wasn't a severe burn, thankfully, but it shook her confidence. She told me she became afraid to make tea at all. This is the hidden cost of these accidents. It's not just the physical pain, but the loss of independence and confidence. Sarah eventually bought one of those one-cup hot water dispensers I mentioned earlier, and she loves it. She feels safe again. I want you to consider your own kitchen setup today. Are you taking unnecessary risks for the sake of saving 2 minutes? We often think, I've been doing this for years and nothing has happened. But superheating is unpredictable. It depends on the specific cup, the purity of the water that day, the humidity, and the exact position in the microwave. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. One final safety tip regarding mobility. If you do heat water in the microwave or a kettle, think about where you are going to drink it. Walking across the kitchen or into the living room with a full, brimming cup of hot liquid is a balance challenge. If you have a walker or a cane, it is almost impossible to do safely. Try to prepare your drink as close to your seating area as possible. If that isn't an option, consider using a travel mug with a secure screw-on lid, but only put the lid on after the water has stopped boiling and you are ready to walk. This prevents spills if you stumble. Alternatively, use a rolling kitchen cart. You can place your tea and a snack on the cart and push it to your table. This gives you stability for walking and removes the weight from your hands. We have covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the invisible danger of superheated water, why smooth mugs are actually riskier than old, scratched ones, and the stories of Margaret, Elias, Robert, Linda, and Sarah. These are real people who faced a danger they didn't expect. I want you to learn from their experiences so you never have to go through the pain they did. Remember, your skin is precious. It is thinner now than it was when you were 30, and it deserves to be protected. The kitchen should be a place of warmth and nourishment, not a place of fear. By making small changes, like buying a kettle, using a wooden stirrer, or just waiting those extra 30 seconds before opening the microwave door, you are taking control of your environment. You are prioritizing your safety. Don't let the convenience of a microwave trick you into complacency. The physics of water does not care if you are in a hurry. Respect the heat, use the right tools, and give yourself the time you need to do things safely. If videos like this help you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a tip. To recap, stop microwaving water in smooth cups, use a kettle or a wooden stick to prevent explosions, and always wait before moving hot liquids. Even small daily steps can help you feel steadier, safer, and more confident in your own home. This video is for education only and is not personal medical advice. Please consult your own doctor for any health concerns.